poor young nurse was hired to take care of a disabled guy in the hospital, not knowing he's a millionaire, and fell in love with her. The hospital bustled with activity, its fluorescent lit halls filled with hurried footsteps, muffled voices, and the rhythmic beeping of machines. Nurses darted from room to room, their scrubs a blur of color against the stark white walls. Patients waited impatiently on gurneys or in chairs, the air thick with the smell of antiseptic and muted tension. Anna adjusted the strap of her overstuffed bag on her shoulder as she weaved through the chaos. Her shift had just started, but the exhaustion from juggling long hours at work and caring for her younger brother at home clung to her like a second skin. Anna called a fellow nurse as she passed the station. "You're assigned to room 402 today. Good luck with that one." Anna paused, her brow furrowing. "Why do I need luck?" The nurse shrugged, a knowing smirk playing on her lips. "You'll see." Pushing back her apprehension, Anna made her way to room 402, her sensible shoes squeaking softly against the linoleum. As she stepped inside, her gaze landed on the patient sitting by the window. James. He sat in a wheelchair, his broad shoulders hunched, his gaze fixed on the view outside. The sunlight streaming through the window did little to soften the hard lines of his face. There was an air of bitterness about him, a palpable wall that seemed to push everything and everyone away. "Good morning, Mr. Black," Anna said, her tone professional but warm. James didn't turn around. "Don't bother," he said coldly. "I don't need another nurse pretending to care." Anna blinked, caught off guard by the sharpness of his tone. She stepped further into the room, her hand tightening slightly on the clipboard she carried. "I'm not pretending. I'm your nurse for today." James let out a harsh laugh, finally turning to face her. His piercing blue eyes locked onto hers, filled with a mixture of defiance and pain. "Is that supposed to mean something? You'll just be another face that comes and goes." Anna's lips pressed into a thin line. She had dealt with difficult patients before, but there was something about James's words that struck a chord. She took a steadying breath, setting the clipboard down on the small table beside his bed. "I understand you're frustrated," she said evenly. "But I'm here to help you, whether you like it or not." "I don't need help," James snapped, his voice rising. "What I need is for everyone to leave me alone." Anna's patience thinned, her usual calm demeanor cracking. She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Look, Mr. Black, I'm not here to pity you or to waste your time. I'm here to do my job, and whether you cooperate or not is entirely up to you. But I'll tell you this, your attitude isn't going to make things any easier for either of us." James stared at her, clearly not expecting such a firm response. For a moment, the room was silent, the tension between them thick enough to cut with a scalpel. Finally, he leaned back in his wheelchair, his expression guarded. "You're not like the others," he muttered, almost to himself. Anna arched a brow. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" James smirked faintly but said nothing, turning his gaze back to the window. Anna resisted the urge to roll her eyes, instead turning her attention to his chart. "Fine. Let's start with the basics. I need to check your vitals and review your medications." James didn't respond, but he didn't resist as she began her routine. His silence, though heavy with resentment, was a small victory in her eyes. As Anna worked, she stole glances at him, noting the faint stubble on his jawline and the tension in his posture. He was young, mid-30s at most, and carried himself with a confidence that hadn't been entirely stripped away by his condition. Yet beneath the surface, she could see the cracks. "You don't have to talk to me," she said after a while, her tone softer now. "But if you ever decide you want to, I'll listen." James didn't look at her, but the slight clench of his jaw betrayed that her words had reached him. When Anna finished her tasks, she straightened and grabbed the clipboard. "I'll be back in a few hours to check on you," she said. As she turned to leave, James's voice stopped her. "You won't last," he said, his tone laced with challenge. Anna paused, glancing over her shoulder. "We'll see about that." With that, she stepped out of the room, her heart pounding from the confrontation. She had no idea what had led James to this point in his life, but one thing was clear: he wasn't just fighting his physical condition. He was fighting the world, and himself. Anna didn't know how the day would unfold, but she was determined to prove James wrong. And perhaps, in doing so, she would uncover the man hidden behind the walls he had built so high. Anna slumped into the staff lounge during her short break, running a hand through her hair as she tried to push the morning's confrontation with James out of her mind. The other nurses were gathered in clusters, their voices low as they gossiped, and shared complaints about their shifts. "Hey, Anna," one of them called out, a smug smile on her face. "How's room 402 treating you?" Anna looked up, her tired eyes narrowing slightly. "He's challenging." "That's putting it mildly," another nurse chimed in, chuckling. "He's impossible. Refuses to let anyone get close. I'm surprised he hasn't scared you off yet." Anna straightened in her chair, her jaw tightening. She was used to being underestimated, her plain scrub's unpolished demeanor, and the faint accent from her working-class upbringing often made her the target of quiet mockery. But she refused to let their words get to her. "I can handle it," she said simply, rising from her seat. As she left the lounge, she thought about her family. Her younger brother, Danny, was counting on her to keep him in school, and her mother's medical bills weren't going to pay themselves. Anna had no choice but to work harder than everyone else, even if it meant dealing with patients like James. James sat by the window in his room, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair as he stared out at the bustling street below. The people out there, so free to move, to live their lives, felt like a cruel reminder of what he'd lost. Before the accident, his life had been everything he'd dreamed of. He was a self-made millionaire, a confident, ambitious man who thrived on challenges and basked in his success. But now, he was confined to this chair, his independence stripped away, his body a shell of what it once was. He kept his identity a secret, refusing to let the nurses or doctors know who he really was. The last thing he wanted was their pity, or, worse, their opportunistic smiles as they tried to curry favor with a rich man. The sound of the door opening pulled him from his thoughts. Anna walked in, her expression calm but determined. She carried a tray with his medications and a clipboard, her steps measured as she approached. "Good afternoon, Mr. Black," she said, her tone professional. James didn't look at her, his gaze still fixed on the window. What now? More poking and prodding? Anna set the tray down on the table beside him. "Just your medication and a quick check of your vitals. Nothing too invasive." He scoffed, his lips curling into a bitter smirk. How considerate. Anna ignored his sarcasm and pulled out her stethoscope. "Let's start with your blood pressure." James reluctantly extended his arm, his movements stiff and reluctant. As she wrapped the cuff around his arm, he studied her face, noticing the faint dark circles under her eyes and the determined set of her jaw. "You don't strike me as the type who gives up easily," he said suddenly. Anna glanced at him, momentarily surprised by the observation. "No, I don't." "Why?" he pressed. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Because I can't afford to." James raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "What's that supposed to mean?" Anna finished recording his blood pressure and turned to face him. "It means I have responsibilities, people depending on me. My brother, my mom. Giving up isn't an option." For a brief moment, James's expression softened, but he quickly masked it with his usual air of indifference. "Must be exhausting, being everyone's savior." Anna smiled faintly. "Not as exhausting as being miserable all the time." James stiffened, her words hitting a nerve. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right," Anna said, meeting his gaze. "But I do know that shutting everyone out won't help you. You're not the only one who's been through something difficult." James's jaw tightened, and he turned his chair slightly, effectively ending the conversation. The rest of the day passed in a tense rhythm. Anna checked on James periodically, each visit met with curt responses and pointed glares. Despite his resistance, she remained patient, her steady demeanor unwavering. Late in the afternoon, Anna returned to his room to find him struggling to reach a book on the bedside table. His wheelchair was angled awkwardly, and his expression was a mix of frustration and stubborn pride. "Let me help you," Anna said, stepping forward. "I've got it," James snapped, his hand slipping from the book. Anna didn't back down. She picked up the book and held it out to him. "Here." James glared at her but took the book reluctantly. "I didn't ask for your help." "And I didn't ask for your approval," Anna replied, her tone even. James stared at her, his frustration momentarily eclipsed by a flicker of admiration. She was different, unapologetically honest and unafraid to challenge him. As Anna left the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to James than his harsh words and guarded demeanor. And as much as he tried to push her away, she was determined to reach him. For James, her resilience was both infuriating and strangely comforting. For the first time in a long while, he found himself wondering if maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to face his struggles alone. The room was quiet when Anna entered for her afternoon rounds. James sat by the window as usual, his wheelchair positioned to face the city skyline. But this time something caught her attention, a book balanced on his lap. The hardcover had a sleek black design with bold gold letters, Principles of Investment Strategy. Anna hesitated for a moment before stepping closer. "Light reading, I see," she said with a small smile. James glanced up briefly, then returned his attention to the book. Something like that. Her curiosity piqued. Anna crossed the room and began tidying the tray table. "I didn't peg you as the type to be interested in investment strategies." He closed the book with a quiet snap, his gaze sharp. "What type did you peg me as?" Anna shrugged, meeting his eyes without hesitation. "Someone who pretends not to care but clearly does. Otherwise you wouldn't be reading something so," she gestured toward the book, "involved." James's lips twitched, the faintest trace of a smile threatening to break through. Fair point. Encouraged by his lack of hostility, Anna leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. "So, are you reading for fun, or are you planning to become the next Warren Buffett?" James smirked faintly. "I think it's safe to say my days of dominating the financial world are behind me." Anna tilted her head, intrigued. "The financial world? That's a pretty specific phrase." He realized his slip too late, his smirk fading into something guarded. "It's just an interest of mine. Keeps my mind occupied." Anna didn't press further, sensing his reluctance. Instead, she changed tactics. "Well, it's good to keep your mind active. A lot of patients I've worked with struggle to find purpose during recovery. It's nice to see you doing something for yourself." James watched her carefully, searching for any hint of condescension. When he found none, he relaxed slightly. "Yeah, well, it's not like I have much else to do." Anna smiled. "You'd be surprised how many people choose Netflix over self-improvement. You've already got them beat." James chuckled, a low, unexpected sound that seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. Over the next few days, their interactions grew less strained. Anna made a habit of asking about the books James was reading, carefully steering the conversations toward topics he seemed comfortable discussing. One afternoon, as she checked his vitals, she noticed another book on his bedside table. This one was about venture capital and startup funding. "You know," Anna said casually, wrapping the blood pressure cuff around his arm, "you've got quite the collection of business books. Ever thought about teaching a class?" James arched a brow. "Teaching?" "Yeah," she said, jotting down his numbers. "You clearly know a lot. You could probably give those Ivy League professors a run for their money." James let out a dry laugh, doubtful. "Besides, people like me don't exactly inspire confidence these days." Anna paused, lowering her clipboard. "Why do you say that?" He shrugged, his gaze dropping to his lap. "Because I'm stuck in this chair. People see the wheelchair before they see me." Anna's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. She stepped closer, her expression softening. "I don't see a wheelchair when I look at you, James. I see someone who's smart, determined, and, if I'm being honest, a little too stubborn for his own good." James looked up, his eyes searching hers for sincerity. "You don't pity me?" "No," she said firmly. "I respect you. There's a difference." For a moment James was silent, his defenses wavering. "You're not like the others," he said quietly. Anna smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Their conversations became a regular part of Anna's visits. She learned that James had a sharp wit and a deep understanding of finance, though he rarely shared details about his past. Whenever she tried to dig deeper, he skillfully redirected the conversation. One day, however, his guard slipped. Anna had just finished helping him with his physical therapy exercises when she noticed a stack of papers on the table. Among them was a detailed business plan, complete with projections and market analyses. She picked it up, skimming the first page. "This is impressive," she said, her brows furrowing. "Did you write this?" James stiffened, reaching for the papers. "It's nothing. Just an old project." Anna held on to them for a moment longer, her curiosity deepening. "Old project or not, this looks like it's straight out of a Harvard case study. Where did you learn to do this?" He hesitated, his expression unreadable. "I used to work in finance," he admitted reluctantly. Anna's eyes widened. "Really? That explains a lot. You're not just reading those books, you lived them." James nodded, though his gaze remained distant. "Yeah, I lived them. Built a company from the ground up. It was everything to me." Anna noticed the shift in his tone, the hint of pain beneath the words. She set the papers down gently. "What happened?" James took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. "An accident. It changed everything. Suddenly I wasn't the man people respected. I was just someone they pitied." Anna's chest tightened. That must have been incredibly hard. It was, James admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. It still is. Anna stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on his arm. You're still that man, James. You're still capable of so much. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise. He looked at her, his eyes softening in a way she hadn't seen before. You really believe that? I do, she said with quiet conviction. For the first time in months, James felt a spark of something he thought he'd lost, hope. The hospital was unusually quiet that morning, the steady hum of activity muted by the early hour. Anna walked briskly down the hall, her clipboard in hand, ready to begin her rounds. Room 402 was her first stop, as it had been for weeks now. As she approached James's room, she slowed her pace, noticing the door was slightly ajar. Inside, muffled voices floated out, a man and a woman, their tones hushed but unmistakably intense. He's been like this ever since the accident, the man said, his voice heavy with frustration. What did you expect, Brian? The woman replied sharply. James's pride has always been his downfall. He's too stubborn to accept help, even from us. Anna frowned, her curiosity piqued. She peeked through the crack in the door and saw a well-dressed couple standing near James's wheelchair. The man's expensive suit and the woman's designer handbag were glaringly out of place in the sterile hospital room. We're doing everything we can, the man, Brian, continued, but the board's getting restless. They want James back, or at least a clear decision about the company's future. The woman sighed, crossing her arms. He won't even let us tell anyone he's here. Do you know how much easier this would be if people knew James Blackwell, the CEO of Blackwell Ventures, was recovering? The sympathy alone could buy us time. Anna's breath caught in her throat. CEO? Blackwell Ventures? She stepped back from the door, her mind racing. The James she knew, the guarded, bitter man in room 402, was a millionaire? No, not just a millionaire. He was the head of one of the city's most prestigious investment firms. Her hands trembled as she gripped the clipboard tighter, her chest tightening with a mix of shock and hidden. James had never mentioned anything about his wealth, his status, or the company. Why didn't he tell me? She whispered to herself. Anna didn't have time to dwell on the question. The door opened suddenly, and the couple stepped out, their conversation halting when they saw her. Excuse me, she said, forcing a professional tone. I didn't mean to overhear. The woman gave her a once-over, her expression unreadable. You're his nurse, right? Yes, Anna replied, her voice clipped. I am. Well, Brian said, adjusting his tie, good luck. You'll need it. They walked away, leaving Anna standing frozen in the hallway. She took a deep breath and stepped into James's room. James looked up as Anna entered, his usual guarded expression softening slightly. You're early, he said. Anna didn't respond immediately. She placed the clipboard on the table and crossed her arms, her gaze steady. You didn't tell me, she said, her voice cool but not unkind. James frowned. Tell you what? That you're James Blackwell, she replied, her tone sharpening. That you're a millionaire CEO, not just some guy recovering in a hospital. James's jaw tightened, and he averted his gaze. So, you heard. I heard enough, Anna said, her frustration bubbling to the surface. Why would you hide something like that? Did you think I wouldn't find out? James sighed, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair. It's not about hiding. It's about surviving. Surviving? Anna repeated, incredulous. You're a millionaire, James. You don't need to survive. You think money makes everything easier? He shot back, his voice rising. Do you have any idea what it's like to have people look at you and only see dollar signs? To wonder if they care about you or what you can do for them? Anna flinched but held her ground. I don't care about your money, James. I care that you hid to me. I didn't hide, James said, his tone softening. I just didn't tell you. I've seen how people change when they know who I am. I couldn't handle that again. Not here. Not with you. Anna's heart twisted at his words, but her frustration remained. And what about me? You've spent weeks talking to me, letting me believe one thing while the truth was something entirely different. I didn't want this to change things between us, James said, his voice quiet but firm. You're the first person in months, years, even, who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank account or a project. I didn't want to lose that. Anna looked away, her emotions warring within her. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the pain and fear behind his carefully constructed walls. But the feeling of being hidden remained, gnawing at her resolve. I don't know what to think, she admitted, her voice trembling. You say you didn't want to lose my trust, but keeping this from me feels like the exact way to do that. James's shoulders sagged, his expression filled with regret. I'm sorry, Anna. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know how to be vulnerable anymore. The raw honesty in his voice caught her off guard. For the first time, she saw past the bitterness and the bravado to the wounded man beneath. Anna took a deep breath, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I need some time to process this, James. I'm not saying I can't understand, but I need you to be honest with me from now on. No more secrets. James nodded, his relief evident. No more secrets. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, she said softly, I don't see dollar signs when I look at you, James. I see a man who's trying to find himself again. As the door closed behind her, James sat in silence, her words echoing in his mind. For the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile, tentative thread that maybe, just maybe, he could rebuild the trust he had nearly shattered. The tension between Anna and James had been simmering for days. Since the revelation of James's identity, their conversations had been careful, measured, and filled with an unspoken weight. Anna still came to his room, still performed her duties with her usual professionalism, but the easy camaraderie they had shared was gone. James felt the change acutely. Every time Anna spoke to him, her tone was clipped, her responses curt. She no longer lingered to ask about the books on his bedside table or to engage in light-hearted banter, and it was driving him mad. One afternoon, as Anna adjusted the pillows behind him, James broke the silence. Are you ever going to talk to me again? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. I'm talking to you now, Anna replied, not meeting his gaze. You know what I mean, James said sharply. I'm not talking about polite small talk. I'm talking about us. Anna froze for a moment, then stepped back, her hands clasped in front of her. There is no us, James. I'm your nurse. That's all. James's chest tightened. Don't do that, Anna. Don't act like what we had meant nothing. What we had. Anna repeated, her voice rising slightly. What did we have, James? A series of conversations built on half-truths. I never hid to you, James insisted. But you didn't tell me the truth either, Anna shot back. You let me believe you were just a regular guy, someone struggling like the rest of us. Do you know how disappointing it felt to find out the truth from someone else? James ran a hand through his hair, his frustration bubbling to the surface. I didn't tell you because I didn't want this, he gestured between them, to change. You're the first person who's looked at me like I'm more than this damn chair, more than my money. I didn't want to ruin that. Well, congratulations, Anna said bitterly. You did anyway. James's jaw clenched. I don't know what else I can say, Anna. I've apologized. I've explained myself. What more do you want from me? Anna shook her head, her voice trembling. I want to trust you, James. I really do. But every time I look at you now, I wonder what else you're not telling me. James's frustration boiled over. Why does it always have to be about what I didn't tell you? What about everything I did tell you? The moments we shared. The way I've opened up to you more than I have to anyone in years. Does none of that matter to you? It matters, Anna admitted, her voice softening. But so does honesty. James let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. You're punishing me for protecting myself. Do you have any idea what it's like to have everyone around you see you as a paycheck or a sob story? I didn't want you to pity me, Anna. I wanted you to see me. Anna's heart twisted at his words, but her resolve held firm. And I did see you, James. That's why this hurts so much. The room fell into an oppressive silence, the air between them heavy with unresolved tension. Finally, James spoke, his voice low and filled with anger. If you're waiting for me to grovel, you'll be waiting a long time. Anna's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed. You think this is about groveling? This is about accountability, James. It's about you owning up to the fact that you broke my trust. I've done everything I can to fix this, James said, his voice rising. But if that's not enough for you, maybe you're the one with the problem, not me. Anna stared at him, her heart pounding. She opened her mouth to respond but stopped herself, shaking her head. I can't do this, she said quietly. James's expression faltered. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't keep being your nurse, Anna said, her voice trembling. Not like this. Anna, wait, James began, his tone desperate now. But Anna stepped back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm sorry, James. I care about you, but I can't keep putting myself in a position where I don't feel safe. Before James could respond, she turned and walked out of the room, the sound of the door closing behind her echoing like a final note of a sad symphony. James sat in stunned silence, his chest heaving as the weight of her words settled over him. He replayed the argument in his mind, his frustration turning inward. For the first time in years, he had let someone into his carefully guarded world. And now, because of his own mistakes, she was gone. He clenched his fists, the helplessness he had fought so hard to suppress threatening to overwhelm him. He had thought the accident was the worst thing that could happen to him. But losing Anna, feeling her slip away because of his own actions, felt infinitely worse. In the quiet of his room, James whispered the words he hadn't been able to say aloud. "I'm falling in love with you, Anna." But it was too late. She was already gone. The small apartment Anna shared with her brother was quiet as she sat at the kitchen table, her thoughts clouded with the memory of her last conversation with James. Days had passed since she left his room, but his words still echoed in her mind. She was startled when Danny entered, holding a thick envelope. "This came for you," he said, setting it on the table. Anna frowned, picking it up. Her name was scrawled across the front in a bold, familiar hand. "James." Her chest tightened as she opened it, pulling out several handwritten pages. She hesitated for a moment before beginning to read. "Dear Anna." I'm not good with words. Not the kind that matter anyway. I've spent most of my life talking numbers, deals, and strategies, things that make sense on paper. But you're not numbers, Anna. You're something I can't quantify, something I've struggled to put into words. So, I'll start with the truth. You already know my name, but you don't know my story. I wasn't born into wealth or privilege. My parents were factory workers, good people who taught me the value of hard work. I was just another kid from a working-class neighborhood, scraping by and dreaming of something bigger. When I was 18, I started my first business, a tiny tech startup run out of my friend's garage. It failed miserably, but I didn't stop. I kept trying, kept failing, until finally one idea took off. By 30, I had built Blackwell Ventures into a multi-million-dollar company. I had everything I thought I wanted: money, success, respect. But none of it prepared me for what came next. The accident changed everything. One moment, I was on top of the world, the next, I was in a hospital bed, unable to move, unable to be the person I once was. The people I thought were my friends disappeared, and the ones who stayed only looked at me with pity. I became bitter, angry, and isolated. I didn't want anyone's help because I didn't believe I deserved it. And then you walked into my life. From the moment we met, you challenged me in ways no one else dared to. You saw past the wheelchair, past the bitterness, and treated me like a person. For the first time in years, I felt like I could be something more than my failures. But I screwed it up. I hurt you because I was too afraid to be vulnerable, too afraid to trust. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Anna. I know I have to earn that. But I needed you to know the truth about who I am and why I hid it. Not because I don't trust you, but because I've never wanted anyone's opinion to matter as much as yours does. You've shown me kindness, strength, and love, even when I didn't deserve it. I don't know how to repay that, but I want to try. I'm falling in love with you, Anna. I think I've been falling for a long time. If you can give me one more chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that you were right to see the good in me. Yours, James. By the time Anna finished reading, tears blurred her vision. She set the letter down, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. James's words had pierced through her doubts, laying bare the man behind the walls he had built. She sat in silence for a long time, clutching the letter to her chest. The next day, Anna returned to the hospital, unsure of what she would say or do. As she approached the therapy room, she heard James's voice, strained but determined. Peeking through the glass window, she saw him standing, his arms trembling as he leaned on parallel bars, his therapist by his side. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he didn't falter, his focus unwavering. "Just one more step," the therapist encouraged. James gritted his teeth, his legs shaking as he moved forward. It wasn't graceful, but it was progress. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen him like this, so vulnerable yet so strong. "Anna," a voice called softly. She turned to see one of the nurses. "He asked for you," the nurse said, smiling. "He didn't think you'd come." Anna nodded, her heart pounding as she opened the door and stepped inside. James looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and relief. For a moment, he seemed to lose his balance, but the therapist steadied him. "Take a break," the therapist said gently, helping James back into his wheelchair. Anna approached slowly, unsure of where to start. "Hi," she said softly. James's lips curved into a faint smile. "Hi. I got your letter," Anna said, holding it up. His smile faltered. "And?" She knelt beside him, her hand resting lightly on his. "And I believe you." James's shoulders sagged with relief. "I thought I'd lost you." "You almost did," Anna admitted, her voice trembling. "But I can see how hard you're trying, James. And I know now that what you kept from me wasn't about deceit, it was about fear. I get that. I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'm worthy of your trust," James said earnestly. Anna smiled through her tears. "You don't have to prove anything, James, just be honest. That's all I've ever wanted." James reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I can do that." As they sat there, the weight of their past misunderstandings began to lift. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time they faced it together. The therapy room buzzed with quiet anticipation. A few therapists and nurses stood on the sidelines, their attention fixed on James, who sat in his wheelchair at the center of the room. The air was charged with a mixture of tension and hope. Anna stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. She could feel the nervous energy radiating from him, but his jaw was set, his focus unwavering. "Are you ready?" the therapist asked gently. James nodded, his grip tightening on the parallel bars in front of him. "Let's do this." With a deep breath, he planted his feet on the ground, his arms trembling as he began to pull himself up. The strain was evident in every muscle of his body, but there was a fire in his eyes that Anna hadn't seen before. "You've got this," Anna whispered, her voice steady. James gritted his teeth, his legs shaking as he pushed himself upward. His knees buckled slightly, but he caught himself, his grip on the bars holding firm. "Just one step," the therapist encouraged. "Take your time." James shifted his weight, his left foot sliding forward. The movement was small, almost imperceptible, but it was a victory. A murmur of encouragement rippled through the room, but James's focus remained on Anna. Her eyes glistened with tears, her expression filled with pride and love. "You're doing it," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "James, you're standing." He smiled, sweat dripping down his face. "Only because you're here." With one more shaky step, James stood tall, or as tall as his body would allow. The room erupted into applause, but for James the only sound that mattered was Anna's voice, her soft words of encouragement grounding him in the moment. Later that evening, James and Anna sat on a bench in the hospital garden, the cool night air a welcome relief after the intensity of the day. The soft glow of the city lights reflected in the distance, casting a serene backdrop to their quiet conversation. "You know," James began, his voice low, "there was a time I thought I'd never walk again. Never even stand." Anna turned to him, her hand slipping into his. "And now you're proving everyone wrong, including yourself." He smiled faintly, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've been my anchor, Anna, my reason to keep fighting." Anna looked down, her cheeks flushing. "You give me too much credit." "No," James said firmly, tilting her chin up so their eyes met. "I mean it. You saw me when I couldn't even see myself. You gave me hope, and that's something no amount of money could ever buy." Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "You've come so far, James. I'm so proud of you." "And I'm proud of you," he said. "You've shown me what strength really looks like. It's not about power or success, it's about resilience, about showing up for the people you care about no matter how hard things get." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I love you, Anna. I think I've loved you from the moment you stormed into my room and told me off." Anna laughed softly, her tears spilling over. "You were impossible back then. And you were stubborn," he said with a grin. "Still are. But that's why I fell for you." Anna leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I love you too, James, even when you drive me crazy." Months later, James stood in the boardroom of Blackwell Ventures, his wheelchair conspicuously absent. He leaned lightly on a cane, his presence commanding as he addressed the board members. Anna watched from the corner of the room, a soft smile on her face. She had never seen him like this, so confident, so alive. The man she had come to love was reclaiming his place in the world, not as the CEO he once was, but as someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. After the meeting, James approached her, his smile warm. "How'd I do?" "You were perfect," Anna said, slipping her hand into his. "Only because I had you watching," he teased. They left the building together, stepping out into the bustling city. James's hand rested on Anna's back as they walked toward the car waiting for them, the future stretching ahead like an open road. That evening, James and Anna stood on the rooftop of the Blackwell Ventures building. The city sprawled out before them, its lights twinkling like stars against the dark sky. James leaned on the railing, his cane resting beside him, while Anna stood close, her hand entwined with his. "Do you remember the first time we met?" James asked, his tone light. Anna chuckled. "How could I forget? You were grumpy and impossible. And you were infuriatingly persistent," he said, laughing softly. They fell into a comfortable silence, the weight of their journey hanging in the air. "We've come a long way," Anna said, her voice filled with wonder. James nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "And this is just the beginning." He turned to her, his expression serious. "I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I'm so grateful for you, Anna, for everything you've done for me, for us. I promise I'll never take you for granted." Anna smiled, her eyes shimmering with tears. "You've given me just as much, James. More than I ever thought I deserved." He cupped her face in his hands, his voice steady. "You deserve the world. Anna, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." As the city lights shimmered around them, they kissed, the moment a perfect culmination of their struggles, triumphs, and love. In that instant, it wasn't about where they had been, but where they were going, a future built on trust, resilience, and a love that had defied the odds. They stood together, watching the city below, their hearts full and their spirits unbreakable. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt exactly as it should. As James and Anna stood side by side, looking out over the city that had brought them together, their story reminded us all of the power of resilience, trust, and love. This tale isn't just about healing from the wounds of the past, it's about building a future where we lift each other up, even in the darkest times. James and Anna's journey shows us that with hope, forgiveness, and courage, we can overcome anything. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. And for more heartfelt tales like this one, make sure to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Let us continue to bring you the stories that touch your heart, lift your spirit, and remind you of the beauty of life's connections. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.